let's talk about carbs, when to have them, why it matters, everything, the whole 9 yards. Okay, when we're talking about carbs, this is a carb right here. We got some cream of rice. There's like 50 grams of carbs in the cream of rice, which would be equivalent of like 2 bananas. Now, why wouldn't I have 2 bananas over cream of rice? Or why wouldn't I just have a bagel? Or why wouldn't I have 2 or 3 slices of toast? You see, that's where it doesn't really matter. A lot of people will ask me, okay, so what's the best carb to go ahead and have for breakfast or to have for lunch and things like that? But it's completely dependent on your goals. If you have issues going to the bathroom, you're going to want a carb that's a little bit higher in fiber. So like oats or having some dates or having some fruit, blueberries, any type of fiber possible, or whole grain foods. But when we're talking about performance, we want something that's going to digest really quickly. So, for instance, like for breakfast, I just ran, I did a little bit of fasted cardio, and now I'm going to break the fast. So, I want a fast digesting carb. So, there's like no fat in here. I got a couple egg whites over here and some eggs, but it's just rice. I could have had regular rice, but this is more concentrated, so it's easier to eat and then faster to digest for me, just from the way that my body reacts to it. Could I have had oats? Yeah, maybe I'll just wait a little bit longer to digest that and go to the gym after. But before the gym should be almost your heaviest carbs. So like in reality, like if I'm gonna go lift weights, I could have like 2 bowls of this, or I could have like 3, 4 bagels, let them digest, because I want blood flow. I want that blood to go into my muscle. And I could put a little bit of salt and drink a lot of water so I blow up like a pufferfish. But then after you work out, that could possibly even be like a dirty cheat meal. Not advising that you should do this all the time, but some people like to have like cereal and milk. So if you have cereal and milk and you're throwing that into the dinner time, right before bed, that's just going to increase your waistline. Whereas like if you would have fed your muscle right after the workout, and this is something that I used to do. I used to have a bowl of cereal and milk, but I had it at the wrong time. I would have it before my workout, and I feel too bloated and full of water. But if you had that after your workout, that's super fast digesting carbs. So you can go ahead and fuel up your muscle faster. Now, are there better and worse carbs? Yeah, based on how processed those carbs are. So if you get a box of cereal that's highly processed, but arguably if you had a bowl of oats that's less processed, if you had a piece of toast that's less processed than like a croissant or a bagel. So based on how high the process of making those carbs are is going to be how much more body fat you're going to go ahead and retain. Does that mean that you shouldn't have them forever? I mean, if you want to be as lean as possible, then no, don't have them. Opt out for the higher quality whole grain sources of food like beans, rice, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, oats, things of that nature. But if you still want to use these processed carbs, know where to use them. So like after your workout, if you want to have tortillas, wraps, bagels, things like that, like after the workout or a little bit before the workout, but don't go crazy with them. And then dinner time, you can have some sort of carbs, but at some point you want to get so disciplined that you don't consume any carbs at night because you want your sugar to drop, because that sugar still keeps you awake. So it goes ahead and kills your REM sleep, for instance. But if you go ahead and reduce the sugar, you're going to be with a tighter waist, and then lower blood sugars are going to be spiked, so your insulin levels are going to drop, and then you're going to go ahead and start mobilizing some of the body fat that you want to drop off. So that's how you would use them, and throughout the week as well. So like let's say you're not going to work out, reduce the amount of carbs you have. So this is where your carbs can vary, because some people are like, oh, I eat 2 cups of rice every sitting, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay, think about it, all is sugar. Why would you have that every single day if your energy output isn't the same? It could vary. So like let's say one day you just laid down on the couch all day, probably want to reduce the amount of food that you're consuming. And then let's say you went out, did some gardening, and you want a little bit extra food, or you want to have a burger, or you want to throw some food on the grill. That's when you can go ahead and eat those things. But these are just all things to have in mind. So back to the topic of the carbs don't really matter. If you start logging your calories, you're gonna notice that macros and things like that, how the carbs stack up against each other, and then you can find better carbs that are lower carbs or higher carbs. Use them when you need them.